The movie begins in Sweden. The year is not specified. We see a woman named Caroline, who was in a car with her daughter, heading somewhere. The radio was discussing some dangerous events, but Caroline was more focused on her conversation with her daughter. Suddenly, gunshots rang out, causing chaos as people fled. Soldiers were attacking civilians, but Caroline hid her daughter in the car. The end of the scene shows soldiers breaking the car's window. What happened next is not shown. The story jumps ahead a few years, where the world has deteriorated drastically. People now live like animals, with only military control. The only rule now is, kill or be killed. Carol and Ed had to forcibly take up arms. She was heading north on the train, but the train was stopped at a station, and Carol and Ed was ordered to the base. She didn't want to go, but she was forced to after being held up by a robber. His name was Jacob Ed, and he gets into the car with her to take her to the base. On the way, he asks her some questions, but instead of taking her to the base, he turns the car towards a town. Caroline knew from the start this wasn't the way to the base. Anyway, Jacob takes some items and gets off, and tells Caroline to stay in the car. There were dangerous people around. Caroline doesn't listen and tries to meet people outside, but they attack her. However, Caroline had weapons and knew how to use them well, leaving the robbers behind. She leaves that place in the car and goes straight to the base. As soon as she arrives, soldiers point a gun at her and ask where the other soldier is with orders in hand. Caroline tells them he didn't make it this far. She doesn't tell the whole story that she had changed the route to actually reach the base. Then she is allowed to come inside. Caroline then meets some soldiers who were called to the base just like her. There were 3 of them, one named David, the other Eric, and the third Sam. But David had information about all the bases under the control of this army. When David sees Sam, he immediately recognizes that this base came under attack last night, and everyone there was killed. Only Sam survived because he had orders to come here. He didn't know his base was attacked. Hearing this from David, he becomes very upset. They were discussing this when Captain Berg arrived, who took them to Colonel Red. It was clear that these 4 were brought here for a special mission. The captain informs them that the situation outside is very bad. Enemies have destroyed our 3 bases miles away. The land is under their control. Thousands of people have been killed, and if this base is also destroyed in a few days, we will be completely defeated. Then no one will survive here. The colonel says that we are losing this war, but there is still a glimmer of hope that might end the entire war. In these 37 years, for the first time, the entire Arctic has been covered in snow, but because the snow layer is thin, vehicles cannot move on it. So, soldiers will have to cross it wearing ice skates, and that's why you all have been brought here. In fact, all 4 of you are professional skaters. The mission is to reach a base miles away from here, where there is a research center, avoiding the enemy's gaze. If the mission is successful, this war will end. The name of this mission is Black Crab, because they had to advance very cautiously, like how crab moves in the dark. Now, who the enemy is was not openly disclosed. Anyway, the colonel further explains that if the mission fails, everything will be over, not just for you but for all of us. Upon hearing this, Caroline says that we have to travel thousands of miles, avoiding the enemy, in their territory, in the darkness of night, wearing skates. This is a suicide mission, so she will not do it. In anger, the colonel says that I'm not begging you. This is an order. The colonel talks to her alone, reminding him of the scene where Caroline was with her daughter. He made a lot of effort to find her. The colonel shows her a picture and tells her that he found her daughter in a camp, and this camp is also where this captain is taking them. Caroline becomes quite emotional upon seeing her daughter and is ready to take on the task. When she returned to her companions, they were all talking about how this mission is really a suicide mission. They shouldn't go on this mission. Then Caroline explains to them that only we can complete the mission and perhaps our efforts will save people, end the war. David says that after all this is over, I will find my brother. He asks Sam, "What will you do if the war ends?" Sam says, "I was going to get married. As soon as the war ends, I will find my girlfriend and maybe get married." But the war has been going on for many years, and it was almost impossible for it to end. The captain comes to them and gives them some necessary items and says that for now, they should all rest. They have to leave before morning, they can only travel at night. This was the last base left, which was saved from the enemy's attack, but unfortunately, there is an attack on this last base in the middle of the night. Panic ensues everywhere, so they have to move for the mission now. Everyone comes out where the colonel gives them 2 capsules, telling them to protect it more than their lives. Colonel orders them to leave. Lieutenant Jake had already reached the base, which the colonel includes in their mission at the last moment. All of them were skating away in the distance, and behind, the entire base was being destroyed. They skate all night, and in the morning, the captain tells everyone to rest and that they'll move forward only after it gets dark because there's a risk of being spotted by the enemy. Meanwhile, the ice there starts to break, and the captain falls straight into the water. Seeing him, everyone lies down on the ice because there's also a danger of them falling, and they start thinking about how to save the captain. The trouble was that the capsules were also with the captain, so Caroline doesn't think much and jumps into the freezing water. She knew saving the captain's life would be difficult because she had moved forward in the water. The layer of snow was thin and thick somewhere else. It was difficult to pull the captain out, so she takes the capsule bag and comes up. But in all this, her condition also worsens. To save her life, everyone goes to nearby houses, where they light a fire so that Caroline's life can be saved. Her life is saved now, because the captain died, so David says we'll follow the chain of command. Lieutenant Jacob's rank is higher, so he'll give orders from now on. Caroline isn't happy with this and asks why Jacob, he wasn't even present in the briefing. He has come here instead of someone else and he doesn't know anything about the mission. This leads to an argument between the two, but David convinces them. All of them were hidden in one building, which was actually enemy territory. At night, while Caroline and the others were resting, they heard some noises. Sam was contacting someone on the radio when the enemy helicopter arrived. They quickly grabbed their belongings and fled, while the helicopter bombed the house. Seeing this, Caroline points a gun at Sam's head and asks who he was contacting. Sam says he was only trying to contact his cousin and insists he's not a traitor. David demands to know if his girlfriend is alive or not. Jacob says not to kill him, just disarm him, as he might lead them to the enemy. They decide to move forward together. Arriving at a place over the frozen river, they see many bodies under the snow. As they were running in different directions to evade the helicopter, bullets were being fired at them. They hid under a bridge for the time being. Jacob said they would stay here for a while and then head to the island. Their enemies could always return later. After a while, they continued forward and searched around some houses. Then they spotted a hut with lights on. Upon investigation, they found an elderly couple living there who offered them food. Jacob asked why they hadn't gone from there. The man replied that they thought dying in their own home would be better than dying at refugee camp. As they were discussing this, the cup dropped from Caroline's hand. As she bent down to pick it up, she noticed a mask underneath, indicating that these people were also their enemies. Before Caroline could do anything, the elderly man fired a gun in return. In retaliation, they also fired bullets, and amidst all this, both the elderly couple and Sam were killed. David was injured, he had been shot in the stomach. Meanwhile, someone was contacting Sam on the radio. Eric spoke to him, and it turned out to be a girl identifying herself as Sam's girlfriend. Hearing this saddened everyone because Sam had been telling the truth, and now he was no longer with them. Whatever happened, they had to move forward. David's condition was critical, but luckily, they found a stranded ship trapped in ice. They entered it to take some rest. Eric, troubled by the situation, picks up a capsule and says he wants to know what's inside. Despite Jacob and Caroline trying to stop him, he opens the capsule and finds a bottle inside. Caroline suggests it might be some kind of virus, a biological weapon meant to stop the war, implying that their enemies wanted to eradicate humanity through the virus. This revelation astonished them all. Meanwhile, as they were examining the ship, David ends his story by shooting himself. Caroline says that with the sound of gunfire, Perhaps enemies can reach here. We need to get out. Eric says our comrades are dying here and you don't even care. Caroline says I'm not here to die, I'm here only for the mission, so if necessary, I'll move forward alone. There's only one thing on her mind, to save her daughter. Now Caroline alone moves forward with the capsule, reaching a place. She sees that the snow layer has weakened. She was proceeding cautiously when suddenly the snow started to break. Both Eric and Jacob find Caroline to stop her. They also reached there. Caroline was trapped. Eric and Jacob saves her with the help of a rope, but the capsule is taken from her. This path was dangerous, but it had to be crossed, so these three tied themselves with a rope and moved forward. A light shines and they start raining bullets on them. Actually, Eric was a sniper, aiming with his gun killing enemies. After which they decide to spend the night in the camp they made. Eric was younger in such a young age. So many bodies seeing affected his mind a bad effect. He tells them about the time when enemies had buried him alive in graves and rats were eating his friend's corpse. He says, when I got the chance, I became part of the army. Caroline says, don't think so much about all this. A soldier has to fulfill his mission. Eric says, whatever I say, the mission always gives me some victory. Jacob asks why this mission is so important to you even though you know that what's in that capsule could end the entire humanity. But Caroline doesn't give any answer to this. Jacob says we should sleep now. When Caroline wakes up the next morning, she sees that they are under attack, and Jacob is missing along with the capsule. Both of them face the enemies for a while. There were fewer bullets, so they were using grenades. When Caroline was about to throw a grenade, she gets shot, and the grenade accidentally falls there. Along with it, Eric dies. Caroline was alive but shot. Anyway, she gathers herself and takes Eric's gun and starts skating again. Then she notices Jacob in the distance and screams at him to stop, but Jacob doesn't stop. Actually, he wanted to destroy that capsule. Caroline fired towards Jacob. Jacob got injured by the shot. Caroline approaches him and grabs the capsule. Jacob tells her not to do it. Millions of lives will be lost if this virus spreads. This capsule is not to kill enemies, but to kill innocent people. Caroline doesn't listen to him because she had to save her daughter. She advances with the capsule, but her condition was deteriorating, and there comes a time when she falls down. Then two people came to her who were riding horses. They say a code word to Caroline, black. Caroline remembers the name of her mission, and she gives the correct answer to the code word. After that, she faints. After several hours, Caroline's eyes open in the medical facility. Then a doctor comes to her and says that we removed the bullet from your stomach, and your 3 fingers were bitten by a rat, so we had to amputate them. Anyway, get ready because the Admiral wants to meet you. Later, she is brought in front of Admiral and some officers. The Admiral congratulates her on completing the mission and also gives her a medal for her bravery. We see that Jacob was also there, meaning he was also saved. Now Caroline asks about her daughter's whereabouts. Then the Admiral tells her to forgive us, we just gave you false hope. We never found your daughter. In fact, they lied to Caroline. Hearing this, Caroline loses control and punches the Admiral in the face. Then Jacob holds her. Caroline was very sad. During the dressing, she hides a scribble and then goes to Jacob. She says, you were right, we have to destroy that virus. Jacob says it's too late. We could have done it at that time, but you didn't agree. Nothing can be done now. Caroline says if my daughter is alive and she's out there somewhere, then I can't let this virus reach her. Jacob asks how we will do all this. We are both injured and have no weapons. She says these medals are there. These people already consider us heroes. We have to take advantage of this. Now, these people approached the lip, and everyone started preparing to leave there. Meanwhile, those people also approached the scientist wearing a suit, and they also left from there. But Caroline's stitches were opened, so her condition was getting worse. Somehow they reached the helicopter. When Jacob went to help her, some soldiers caught him, and the Admiral also arrived there. Caroline signals Jacob to go, and shows everyone a grenade on which the tubes of the virus were attached. The Admiral tells her not to do it. Caroline advances with the grenade and stops at the edge. Jacob was watching her from the helicopter. The admiral tells her to think about her daughter. Caroline smiles and replies, "That's what I'm thinking about," and then she jumps. We see that with the explosion of the grenade, Caroline along with the virus was also finished. With this movie concludes. I hope you have liked this movie recap. Please like, share and subscribe for more real recaps.